Today I'm going to show you some tips that might come in handy when you're building your own Australian native garden. One of the first things you've got to consider is your location. I've chosen this block because it gets all day sun and this keeps my grevillea species very happy. What's your predominant wind direction? We get a howling southwesterly wind that comes straight off the ocean here. So I've had to plant out these lily-pilly species, some hakeas, eucalypts and some larger growing grevillea species to create a bit of a windbreak to protect us from that predominant wind. And this helps you create a microclimate on the inside. Once your windbreak gets up, you can start growing some more delicate species like this Grevillea floribunda I have right next to me here. Before you start planting, it's always good to suss out plants that grow in your local region and local surrounding gardens in that area. Here I've used the coastal boobiella as part of a windbreak and it's grown absolutely beautifully here. I've also got some Allocasuarina littoralis, the black she oak, growing superbly in this location. Local grasses like your Ostrostipa stipoides, grasses like this Dianella produce important seeds and berries for your local wildlife, as well as they create an important part of the diversity and habitat throughout your garden. Paths are another thing to consider, not only for easy access to do maintenance, etc. I've had to consider wheelchair and disability access because I do open gardens from time to time, so I've had to make sure that these paths are wide enough to get a wheelchair through. I've also considered the visual aspect of the layout of the garden. I've positioned the beds so I can look out through the windows and watch the action that goes on. I can see the birds feeding on the flowers, the birds having a drink in the bird bath. I can watch the flower colours and the seasons change throughout the year. This is a really important aspect you need to consider. Now I've mounded and raised all the garden beds up, so not only for good drainage, but for a good visual aspect and to create a bit of interest. When we first purchased the block, I thought, how in the hell am I going to get a large amount of soil for exactly what I needed? I ended up getting onto a developer nearby and I ended up getting 15 truckloads of soil brought in. I had a little guy with an excavator and he moved it all in a day exactly where I wanted it. It's a good idea to draw up a map and design your garden, plan it out that way. It doesn't have to be anything fantastic. It can be really rough, just like this bit of a poor excuse I have for a map just here. What's in your head, you can create the design on a piece of paper, and this makes it much easier in the process. When it comes to making your garden beds, soil is very important. Natives usually love a sandy loam soil and they love plenty of good drainage. Because I've mounted the beds up, they've already got good drainage, but I had a really heavy volcanic clay to work with here. Gypsum's one of the first things I added to this heavy clay, and then over time I added some mulch from our local transfer station. Now that mulch, a lot of people complain about it because they say it's got a bit of rubbish in it, but it's actually got a lot of essential nutrients, and this has helped condition my soil over time. And then I've added some nice eucalyptus Australian native mulch over the top of that, because I've been collecting grevilleas for around 20 years now, and I graft them. So because a lot of the species that we get from, say, Western Australia just won't grow well down here in southern Victoria when growing on their own roots. So I put them on a sturdy rootstock called Grevillea robusta. Now this is from a subtropical northern New South Wales and into Queensland where it grows naturally. But when you put the scion, which is the top part of the plant, onto this Grevillea robusta, this creates a bulletproof, solid base for the plant to grow on, and this Grevillea robusta will pretty much grow anywhere around Australia and other parts of the world. In she goes. I've used this Corten steel edging to retain the mulch on the garden bed because the little blackbirds were getting in and they were kicking the mulch out onto the path, and it was getting really annoying. It also creates a nice visual appeal to your garden paths. I've used a Tuscan topping and compacted it down, and this is long lasting and adds a really nice effect. Because I had roughly 200 species of grevilleas to plant out in this garden, I've needed more of a diverse range of plant species to put in. So I've been constantly adding different plant species from different genuses over time. This keeps the insects and the birds happy. I use plants like this Grevillea insignis as not only a feature standing up on top of the mounted up garden bed, but it pretty much flowers most of the year round. Plants like this little thryptomene, beautiful pink flowers, this keeps the bees happy. Foliage colour is another key element to consider. I've got this Grevillea infundibularis here. It's got a really nice lush green foliage, interesting shaped leaves as well, but red flowers. And then up above it I've got the magnificent Grevillea eriostachya with a silver foliage, so this contrasts, so the green on this one here contrasts really nicely with the grey. Flower shapes and colours are something to consider. I try to have a nice mix of different colours throughout the garden. So you've always got something in flower for the local native birds all year round. I recommend buying plants from your local native nursery. Helps a lot as well, because they'll not only have plants that can tolerate the conditions in your local area, but they'll be able to give you advice on what grows in that area you choose to live. These are just some of the tips and aspects to consider when building your own Australian native garden. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to shout out, subscribe to Binchys Garden, and I'll catch you again next time.